Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. I've got several topics to touch on today. I'm going to begin by talking for a minute about COVID. COVID has certainly been the topic in the news all weekend, as we know, with the President, the First Lady, announcing that they have COVID, and 3 senators and the President of Notre Dame and press secretary and a number of people. So the weekend news has been all COVID all the time. Now, here in St. Louis, though, our numbers look pretty decent. Last week when we talked, our numbers had gone up a bit. But yesterday, the number of new COVID cases in the city of St. Louis was 33. It had been down as low as 21. So it's just one of these things that these cases, and part of it is reporting, when various people report. But it was 21, and then on Thursday, I think it was 49, and there were some old cases in there. And 29, 28, yesterday, 33 new cases. Number of people currently hospitalized. Now, as a reminder, these numbers are 2 days old. So this is people that were in the hospital on Friday, 229. That's better than it was earlier in the week, where it was up as high as 184. So we'll see if that's just a Friday low, or if these creep back up over this week, and we'll be watching that number, of course. And 71 confirmed COVID positive cases of those folks were in the ICU, and 48 were on ventilators. So those are Friday's numbers. Now, patients admitted last couple of days is down a bit, 25 and 20, and patients discharged was 32. So we just continue to watch the number of new cases. We watch the number of people that are in the hospital, in ICU, and on ventilators. We watch that closely. We have not seen a big change in that. All been fairly steady over the last 6 weeks. Including, I've got a few numbers here, over the last month, continue to have the highest number of cases. 29% of the cases are people in their 20s, 20% of the cases are people in their 30s. So that has not changed significantly. Almost half of the cases are people in their 20s and 30s. Similarly, it has not changed significantly that in the city of St. Louis, the zip codes with the highest number of cases continue to be 63116, 63109, 63108. Now these are the cases from 2 weeks, the September 21st through the 5th of October. So part of that is probably there are a lot of people who live in those zip codes. Zip codes are not balanced in terms of number of people, but nevertheless, those are the highest zip codes with the highest numbers. Looking back at last week in total in the city of St. Louis last week, we had 222 new cases. That's pretty consistent with what we had the week before and the week before that. So no big change there. As you know from the news, continue to watch cases from our surrounding counties, which are quite high and in the red zone in some cases. That also does affect our hospital numbers. So not something that was expected, not something that was unexpected. So that's it for COVID for today. Of course, we'll take your questions about COVID as soon as I cover a couple more things with you. One, on Friday, the 22nd Judicial Circuit, Judge Burleson did execute another administrative order that extends the eviction moratorium until November 6th. So another 30 days on the eviction moratorium. This order is slightly different from previous orders because evictions are based on the following reasons continue to be permitted. And this is just explicitly says that if you're engaged in criminal activity on the premises, if you're threatening the health or safety of other residents, if you're damaging or posing an immediate or significant risk to damage to the property, or if you're violating building codes or similar regulations, or violating contractual obligation other than not paying the rent, then those evictions will be able to move forward. But essentially, this is a pretty common sense order. What it does is it protects those people who can't pay their rent as a result of COVID-related losing their job or getting their hours cut. But it does not protect people that are dealing drugs or breaking the law out of a particular apartment or house that they're renting. So that is the extension of the eviction moratorium. It'll be in place for another month. I should stop there and say that if you or someone you know is at risk of being evicted because you haven't been able to pay the rent because you lost your job or your hours were reduced, etc., as a result of COVID, you know we have $7.4 million that we've allocated towards rental and mortgage assistance. And we're working with about 15 partner agencies to process those claims. We have thousands of claims, and those claims are verified first with information about why you weren't able to pay the rent, how much your rent is, and then when that documentation is available, then these agencies pay the rent directly to the landlord. So through last week, there had been about 500 apartments or houses that had received payment. The landlord had received payment of the rent during the period of time, up to 3 months, that the individual wasn't able to pay the rent. That's around $900,000. And so that's good. That continues to help people. And then finally, my last subject before we take your questions, two things actually, two last subjects. One, you can still self-report on the census. State of Missouri, 66% of the people have self-reported. City of St. Louis, 54%. Now, a census worker may have come to your door, you may have reported in another way, but if you have not filled out your census, it's really simple. Please go online, put in your address, fill out your census. If you miss being counted, you and your family, that costs the city $1,300 per person that we miss, because we miss out in those federal funds. So very important for you to be counted. And then the last item, you still have 2 more days to register to vote in the November election. Wednesday, the 7th, is the last day that you can register to vote in Missouri. So you can register online, you can go to the election board, go to the library, just go online, make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure that your vote is able to be counted on November the 3rd. And those were the topics that I had. Do we have questions?
Couple of questions. Does the city of St. Louis still have testing available for COVID-19 that is available for free and does not require insurance?
Yes, we do. you'll post a link.
Mm-hmm.
So our federally qualified health centers have testing available for free. There are about 10 or 12 locations around the city. We'll post the link here. It's Affinia Healthcare, People's Clinic, Care STL. I'm missing one or two, but and there are locations all around the city where you can be tested for COVID. Certainly, if you have any symptoms, please be sure that you do get tested. Or if you believe that you might have been exposed to somebody who's tested positive. In either of those cases, please self-quarantine. If you go to get a test, quarantine yourself until you get the test results. If you feel like you may have been exposed to someone, somebody that you work with, somebody in your family, a friend, and you're waiting to get a test, self-quarantine until you find out the results. We know how highly contagious COVID is. We're continuing to try to tamp down the spread of COVID, and to do so with no more restrictions. The restrictions that we have now in the city of St. Louis are, of course, you've got to wear a mask, you've got to social distance. We recommend you wash your hands, use hand sanitizer. Bars and restaurants are closing at 11 p.m. They have to operate at 50% capacity. So we have these restrictions in place, and we're doing our best not to have any more restrictions. You may have seen over the weekend that New York City, and of course we're not New York, but New York City is considering even rolling back some of their operating businesses. Illinois, we still have a situation where St. Clair County, just right across the river here in Illinois, they don't even have inside dining yet in their restaurants or bars. As it gets cooler out, which it's a beautiful day today, a nice day to, if you want to go to a restaurant, to sit outside, but you are allowed in the state of Missouri, right here in the city of St. Louis, to eat inside a restaurant as well, as long as you're wearing a mask, except when you're eating or drinking, and the tables are socially distanced.
Pritz has a question about Halloween and what considerations the city of St. Louis is making to try and keep people safe, but also letting families still do that to the best extent possible.
Pritz, this is a hard one. Of course, what we're recommending, and these guidelines, by the way, are posted on our website, is that just trick or treat. If you're going to trick or treat, just do it with your family unit. So, not a bunch of kids that aren't part of the same family unit trick or treating together. And I know it's fun to do that, but so stay with just your family. Be sure that you socially distance from other groups. And I know sometimes, there are a lot of kids, and kids are running and they're excited and about getting all that candy. But it's important to stay socially distanced. And it's absolutely critical that everybody be wearing a mask, a face covering. And that's whether it's kids or whether it's the adults that may be walking with them. And then finally, we're recommending that you think of other ways other than trick-or-treating to celebrate Halloween. You might want to do a trunk or treat. You might want to do a situation where maybe you have a table, folding table or something, that you sit outside near the sidewalk with pre-packaged little bags of candy. So, you can't be having the kids just, put their hand in a big old bowl of candy and take out the one, oh, they don't like that one, so they put a couple back and they find a couple more. I mean, this is just the way it is, So you've got to really, we're relying on parents here and folks that might want to be giving out candy to really scale back this year. And this isn't like any other year for Halloween. So we don't want to take all the fun out of this, but it's a serious situation. So take those precautions.
Jennifer's question is do you anticipate having to increase restrictions as we head into winter, or at what point do you think it would be appropriate, under what circumstances, to increase restrictions?
So Jennifer, I wish I knew the answer to that question. We hope that we do not have to increase restrictions. because that is a detriment to those businesses and, importantly, a detriment to the people who work in those businesses. So we're trying hard not to have to increase restrictions. We're relying on you and all St. Louisans and business owners to follow the guidelines, to be able to keep the numbers at a tolerable level. Our numbers right now are just that, tolerable. They're not good, but they're not awful. So they're at a tolerable level. So we hope that we do not see an uptick as we go into winter. The other thing I would say is get a flu shot. Flu is a respiratory illness. You want to avoid anything which compromises your immune system and makes you more susceptible to COVID as well. So flu shot doesn't influence COVID, but if you get sick with the flu, that may influence COVID. So.
Andrew has a question about businesses, which you've mentioned, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
They have been financially hurt by some of the restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Has the city considered offering financial support to these businesses, whether it be tax credits or any other sort of financial help?
So Andrew, the city does have a program of a $5,000 grant to small businesses. That's businesses with 25 employees or less. And you can get a $5,000 grant. We have given out $4 million worth of grants, so about 800 businesses. We are likely to increase that by another million. So for those of you that might still be waiting to hear, and there are a few, not too many. I got a report on this last week, about a week ago. But you can still apply if you haven't. So that's, $5,000 is not as much as we'd like for it to be, but this is a stopgap. We of course are still hopeful that the federal government will pass a package. It doesn't look real promising right now to continue to help people, but that's what the city is doing right now.
On the election, Mayor, have ballots been sent out for those who requested mail-in or absentee ballots? And how does somebody check the status of their ballot or for a family member?
So yes, ballots are being sent out. I mean, they're getting, every day, they're getting requests for mail-in ballots or for absentee ballots. What does this say?
stlcityBallotTracking.com.
There we go. Sorry. This is a website where you can check it. stlcityBallotTracking.com. So your ballot, I guess, has a PIN number, and mail-in ballots were sent beginning back on September 22nd. So that's been 10 days ago or so. And so you may have received it already. I know some people have. There are many people that are voting what's called in-person absentee. That right now, that in-person absentee, you can do it at the election board right here at the corner of Olive and Tucker. I know a number of people who have done that. Beginning a week from today, you'll be able to vote in-person absentee at 4 different public library locations. Julia Davis Branch Library, Schlafly Branch Library, Central Library, and Booter Library. That'll begin a week from today. That's in-person electronic voting. So if you don't want to rely on the mail, and you just, would feel more comfortable going and voting in person where your ballot will be counted, you'll have 5 locations starting next Monday that you can do that. If you just want to get there today, the election board's open till 4:30 or 5. I think 5 o'clock. Get there a little early because I'm sure they'll have a little line. Hasn't been terrible though, from the reports that I've seen. So don't forget to vote.
A few more COVID questions, Mayor. We've had some praise for City Hope taking over Biddle House. What are the plans to help keep the unhoused population COVID-19 safe as we prepare for winter?
Well, yes, City Hope last Thursday, I think it was, began operating Biddle House for the city. That is a facility that has beds for 100 men, homeless men. There's infection control there. They don't have 100 people there now because they have reduced the population so that to keep the COVID spread down. It's all about infection control. It's about mask wearing. It's about social distancing. A number of people have been tested at our homeless shelters, and so. And in that case, then if someone comes back positive, then they have to be quarantined. So it's a complex situation, and but our folks are working on that every single day so that we don't end up with an outbreak. When you're in a congregate living facility, whether that's a nursing home or a homeless shelter, of course you're in close proximity to other people, and especially when those people go out and come back during the day, you don't know who they have been near or around, and it's very contagious. So that's what we do.
Okay, on other topics, Mayor, a few folks have asked for an update on the Eads Bridge, street closures and lane restrictions in the downtown, some complaints about them hurting businesses, and how much longer is that going to be on Washington Avenue?
So we did have some complaints earlier on Washington Avenue about the road closures hurting businesses. We also had a lot of complaints about the reckless driving hurting businesses. And so what we did initially was we closed Wash Ave from 14th to 10th, I think it was, pretty much completely. And then after about 2 weeks of that, we opened it back up during regular hours. I was just by Washington Avenue this morning, and Washington Avenue is open now. If you want to go to lunch there or something like that, you can drive down Washington Avenue. Now on the weekend evenings, it's closed again. So it is a balance here of preventing reckless driving, dangerous driving, drag racing, all of that, and being able to have it open as much as possible for the businesses. So we're trying to make that balance. If you own a business or work at a business and you have some specific suggestions, send them our way. We're happy to do it. We're trying to balance the interests of business, residents, keeping everybody safe.
I missed a COVID-19 question from Pam, who would like your thoughts on how much of a difference would a statewide mask mandate make? You mentioned all the other outstate counties that are not doing as well as the St. Louis region is.
So Pam, I don't know how much of a difference it would make. I don't have a crystal ball on that, but we know that mask wearing is effective. And St. Louis City and County and Illinois have had mask mandates in place for a long time now. Frankly, our numbers are better than outstate those counties that have not. So how much of a difference would it make? It's hard to say. I certainly wish we would have had a statewide mask mandate, and that people could have been persuaded to follow it. Because, it's two things. It's one thing to mandate something. You gotta persuade people to actually follow that mandate as well.
That's it for questions today.
That's all? We're already done? Is it 2:30? Almost. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. I hope you are able to get outside a little bit today and enjoy this beautiful day. We've got a great week weather-wise ahead, and we'll be back on Wednesday and chat with you more. If you have questions, you know how to find us. Thank you all. Appreciate it.